There was a study done in Canada in a university setting with graduate students. They used three different groups of people. There was Canadians, there were Europeans, there were Asians. So they were from different parts. Canada is such a melting pot, so all different areas of the world. And they did this study where in the beginning of the classes, they gave the students lots of details. Like their syllabus was crammed full of details. It was, everything they wanted done, exactly when they wanted it done, exactly how they wanted it done. And then as the semester went on, they started pulling the details away. So they would pull away little things that they were used to having. And what they found was that as they pulled those away, anxiety climbed and productivity diminished. So keep this in mind. And this has stayed true, I think, as we've gone through from millennials to Generation Z, we're still seeing the same thing. They're getting a lot of information up front in their classes, in their school. And when they come into a company or into a situation with family where all of those things aren't expressed, all of those details aren't given, or how you want things to look in the end isn't given up front, it's very frustrating and demoralizing for them. So I want you to really take that in. Because for me, I kind of I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I told you that. I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's get it started and then we can shape it as we go. This is super frustrating to a millennial or to a Gen Z because that's not what they're used to. And they feel micromanaged when you do that. When you want to shape as they go, they feel micromanaged. Such a hard thing for me to overcome with people, where I'm trying to figure out, how do I do this? It requires more time and more thought on the front end, but the results that it produces are so much better. So if you can get yourself to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to really focus in on what I want on the front end instead of shaping as we go. See how that can improve your relationships. It can make a huge difference. Both sets of people feel disrespected. And I think that's where it all stems from. Yeah. The baby boomers took after that builder philosophy where you respect your elders. The millennials go more, their philosophy sits more in respect the person who can get it done. Okay, so like one of the things I've given an example of before is that like a call center. I remember I always worked in a call center, and when somebody would call in, they'd say, let me speak to your boss. And I knew that was a baby boomer. They wanted the authority. Now, when a millennial calls in to get help with somebody, they just want someone who can help them. They don't care if it's the owner of the company. And so those are some things. And when I talked about that first thing, when I said you have to see the 180 between work to live and live to work, like that's where it starts at. Because that I am what I do, my I am statement for a boomer is this is who I am, what I do. And then for the millennial to come back on the other side of it and say, that's not who I am. Who I am is all of these things. It's not just what I do. That's why I focus a lot of my attention on millennial and Generation Z, because really it's up to people with more maturity to reach back and say, okay, let me figure out how to relate to you. If we're expecting younger generations to figure out how to relate to us, that's called entitlement. So, it doesn't work too well. And I know that's how it always used to be, but that isn't how it is now. And some of it has even, like you said, why the big difference and why does the shift feel so hard? Some of it's just population demographics, because the generation in between the boomers and the millennials is a smaller generation. So the Gen X is just smaller. It's less years, so it's smaller. The shift was quicker. And so just because of the sheer numbers of it, there wasn't as much of a cushion. There wasn't a natural, it was more like Gen X is also adapters. So they kind of adapted to how builders do things or boomers do things, even if that wasn't what they wanted to do, because there just wasn't enough numbers to influence the shift, the tipping point. But when you enter millennials, you've got a bigger generation, and now you've got enough to push the tipping point, and then you have people pushing back.